Hello everyone and welcome to another LJT MTG video. I've got a fun one here for you today. It's fun, I get to say that. Normally you're the one who says that.
Yep.
As you can see, it's Jer. I've got a Liam with me for at least part of it, hopefully the whole thing, but he may disappear at some point.
It all depends on how fast we set review.
Yeah. And knowing us, we have been known to argue about things in the past, so we'll see how much of that we get into. Without further ado, we'll get into the grading system. For those of you who play Limited, you'll be pretty familiar with this, but ours are a little different and more nebulous. It's mostly just trying to give you a rough idea of how applicable and ubiquitous these cards might be, whether they're going to be a good card across a wide variety of archetypes or maybe sneak into some of the more niche archetypes and stuff in between. The letters don't really mean all that much. It's just meant to give you somewhat of a signpost of how playable and much you will see this card in our estimation, which is mostly my estimation because I made this alone without the help of anyone else. So here we go. Liam hasn't seen this before. Pardon?
That's true. Yeah, I haven't seen the slideshow. That's right.
Yeah,
we talked about the cards.
Yeah.
But the slideshow is a
two
recollection
cards
of
per slide. And we'll get into it with Anticausal Vestage. This is a 6-mana, 7/5 Eldrazi with Warp 4. We'll briefly explain Warp because this is the first time we've seen it. Warp is an alternate casting cost that is, I think, always less than or equal to the original casting cost.
I don't even think there's any that are equal.
I
guess there's some equal. Yeah,
the dog.
There's some equal. Yeah, the dog.
You may cast this card from your hand for its warp cost, and then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Then you may cast it from exile on a later turn. So basically every warp card has an enter the battlefield ability or a static ability or some reason you would want it in play for a turn. And so you kind of get like a discounted rate. And so Anticausal Vestige says when this creature leaves the battlefield, so it'll be in your end step, draw a card, then you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly wanted this one in the list because it's another Eldrazi, and Trent and I have both been pretty Eldrazi brained recently. So, like, the big thing is that this is just another, like, reasonable, like, earlier play in the Eldrazi deck, and, like, you could conceivably, like, warp this on turn 3, like, with one of the soul lands, and then put something else in play. Like, even if you warp it on turn 3 and put just another land in play on end step, that's not terrible. But yeah, I think the C grade is very appropriate here. Like, this is not some like soon to be format staple. It's like a cool card. It's a card that I could see people reaching for. It like plays kind of interestingly with like flicker effects. Like, I could see this being something where maybe if you are in some kind of like blink deck, you could do some kind of neat stuff where you like warp this and then ephemerate it or something like that. But yeah, like, it's not going to be,
and notably all the warp cards are like pretty good with that cheaty kind of blink effect.
The Anticausal Vestige plus Eldrazi Displacer is like a dream that I have of assembling. Yeah, exactly.
I will note that I potentially see this having some application if like a more proactive ramp deck or like a big mid-range deck exists and your meta is pretty blue. This is a pretty good card against blue. Like, if you have a really like premium threat that you want to resolve, you can warp this, and then your premium threat just gets to be put onto play uncounterably, which like could see applications there as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like they have to decide whether or not they're going to counter the
like Vestige. If they have one counter spell and they know you have like Seasoned Dungeoneer or something in hand, if you warp this, they also have to counter this because this also represents Seasoned Dungeoneer or whatever thing you're trying to put into play. All right,
Yep.
now up next we have Tezzeret Cruel Captain, which is certainly in the running for best Canadian Highlander cards in the set. It is a Tezzeret Planeswalker, 3 colorless mana, 4 loyalty. Has a static ability whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret, and has 3 loyalty abilities. 0. Untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. -3. Search your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 or less. Reveal it. Put it into your hand, then shuffle. -7. You get an emblem with at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature.
Card's really sweet. I think one of the funny things about this card is this is one of the first planeswalkers where I think it's like not unreasonable to think that you're going to play this and potentially be able to like ultimate it the next turn it's in play, and you will choose not to a bunch of the time. I think, which is pretty interesting.
I think just about every card deck that's putting this card in their deck is putting it in there primarily because the -3 like Trinket Mage mode is very good and powerful. Like, this is obviously very good in Time Vault decks because it untaps Time Vault and searches
it just
for other
is a
things.
key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's potentially pretty good in Storm decks. Like, they've played 3 mana tutors that basically only get Lotus or LED before. I guess kind of similar to Breach. Also potentially could see playing it in Paradox. They have a bunch of good 1 mana artifacts, like this Tutors for Expedition map, which gets you to Academy. Paradox is a deck where the ultimate is potentially quite good.
The ultimate's nice because in the matchups where you want it, I think you'll be able to get to it not that difficultly. Like, the blue decks have to basically like counter this card on sight, even if they're not worried about losing to the combo side of it. Like, they just run the risk of getting run over by a bunch of robots. Or one really big robot. It is worth noting that you can just target the same thing over and over again. And it's at the beginning of combat, which is cool. So like you get the value out of it right away. Mm-hmm. Additionally, one thing that I noticed with this is like the 3 casting cost lines up pretty nicely with like Grim Monolith or all of the monoliths,
Mana
basically.
Vault.
Yeah, exactly. So where you can like go like land, Mana Vault, play this, untap Mana Vault, play something else. Which is pretty sick. Or this finds Mana Vault too. So like even if you aren't doing Lotus things and spending a bunch of your points on that, like you can go like play this, find Mana Vault, play something, next turn untap Mana Vault with this, and have just jumped ahead on mana big time. Which of the artifact decks do you see this as being the best in? I actually think this might be. I think this is best as a Paradox Academy card. I think it's good in Lotus Breach, and I think it's good in Time Vault, but I think Paradox Academy is the card that's the most excited about, or it's the deck, sorry, that's the most excited about this.
Yeah, I think either Paradox or Time Vault probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This I think is not a Citadel Storm deck or a card. Also, interestingly,
concur. That deck is like secretly not that artifacty. Like they just want to play the bare minimum artifacts to be able to enable tinker early and then go from there. All right, back to the set review. We have a Steelli Reclaimer, 3 white for a 5/4 flying angel warrior. When this creature enters, return target non-creature, non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast this creature, and it has warp for 2 and a white. So this is like kind of Revelark-esque. But
yeah, it's worse than Revelark, but
well, it's different. I think it's like less combo-y than Revelark, but like better on its own. Like Revelark has a pretty miserable body.
Yeah, this is definitely a more impressive thing to cast on its own.
Yeah, so like I think you're playing this in a more fair scenario, whereas Revelark, even like back in the day, was virtually only ever a combo card. Like very rarely you got fair applications of Revelark, but not a ton. But like a 5/4 flyer that, like, I actually, the more I've been thinking about it, the more I've gotten higher and higher on warp. Because like 3 mana Unearth, not great.
It's not Unearth though, because it doesn't hit creatures.
Oh, yeah, it says non-creature.
Yeah,
Okay,
I actually
never
had this
mind.
card rated higher than this initially, but it says
Okay.
non-creature. I actually think this one is like a C plus. Like I'm not sure
Oh,
how
interesting.
excited
I
I
think
am.
it's worse now that I see non-creature.
Sorry, yeah, C minus. That's what I
Yeah,
meant.
I maybe would have excluded it if I realized it said non. All
Yeah,
right.
so it's like it's not. I
Awkward.
initially read it as it's 3 mana unearth, and I was like, okay, yeah, so like 3 mana unearth, and then it's like
Yeah.
5 mana like baby reanimate, but no, it's worse than that. So
All
it's
right. Yeah. All right.
I don't
Never
know. I
mind.
think we could
I'm
probably
off it.
skip over this one pretty
D.
quickly.
All right. Cosmic Grand Zenith. 2 and a white for a 2/4 human soldier. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, choose one. Create 2/1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I think we're kind of getting close to a density of like 3 mana cards that reward you for casting a bunch of spells. And that as an archetype is kind of awkward, but I don't know, this one is powerful.
It's worth flagging. Obviously, the things that you like about this card is that it is only 1 white mana, so like it's very splashable. I think this card actually might secretly be a Taxes card. Like you could probably play it in Boros Taxes, and it just all of a sudden like it creates this threat that gets to sit and play, and you can kind of just jam with impunity as long as this is alive, because anytime you get to trigger it, you're like generating a lot of mana worth of value. Like even just getting like a raise the alarm for playing your second spell, even if like nothing comes of those 2 spells, you're pretty happy. It's obviously the dream is that you like get this in play on turn 2 and then like have a mox or something as your second spell the turn it comes into play, and you get value right away. And I don't know how often you'll do that, which is the concern, but I think the ceiling on this card is really high. Like it's one of these cards where like if your opponent goes like Mana Crypt Plains Cosmic Grand Zenith and you don't immediately have an answer for it, it feels like you're just going to get buried.
Yeah, because like the fast mana draws are the draws where you're gonna get this in play early and still have gas and mana to start double spelling immediately, which
Yep.
is why I liked the play pattern. Like I also noticed the Plains Mana Crypt, and then you have 4 mana on turn 2. Pretty hard not to double spell basically every turn of the game from that point. So
Yep.
yeah.
I like it. It's sweet. I think that it's like worth flagging, but I think your grade is pretty accurate. C plus.
All right, I'll let you take Dual Sun Technique.
This is a heroic card, and like maybe a couple of other like pump spell aggro decks. This is 1 and a white for an instant that says target creature gains double strike until end of turn. If it has a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. So in heroic, obviously this is great because this is just always going to cantrip more or less, which you're very excited about. But just generally, like 1 and a white, give a creature double strike. Like they have printed effects like this before. They exist. There's the white red hybrid one from Eventide that's quite old,
Double Cleave.
and we have double cleave, and like there's obviously Temur Battle Rage in red, which is decent. I think that this one is like another one in a line of like, yeah, you could potentially reach for this card. The reason why like specifically heroic likes it is because this one is just going to always more or less cantrip in that deck, which is definitely exciting. But I think the C minus is exactly right. This is playable in one deck, and I don't really think that you're expecting to see it in many other places. I will
it's
say,
also
and we'll
not
see
really
it as
like moving the needle in that deck, right? Like it's not like, oh, we got
no.
Dual Sun Technique, now heroic is gonna.
Yeah, heroic is online.
Yeah.
The other deck, I guess, and this is a theme of this set review, but there are a bunch of cards for the +1/+1 counters archetype, I guess is the way to refer to it. And I do feel like that's an archetype that just keeps getting more and more and more pushed cards. And this is one that you would definitely potentially include in a deck like that as well.
Yeah. All right. Next card we have is Exalted Sunborn, 3 white for a 4/5 flying life-linking angel wizard. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead, and it has warp for 1 and a white. So this is an obvious, probably only tokens card. And it looked a little clunky to me, but like the lifelink is the only reason I think this might see play. If you're like in a really aggressive meta, like some crazy person is winning with red deck wins in 2025, like maybe your tokens deck decides to play this.
Yeah, like the YJ meta currently, you mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I was alluding to.
but yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this one is like largely kind of dorky. Like we saw the Elspeth Planeswalker from Tarkir Dragonstorm, which doubles the creation of tokens, be a card that sees play occasionally. But the difference between having that static ability on a Planeswalker that makes tokens itself versus a 4/5
Well,
flyer that
and does a ton of other things. Like,
yeah, versus a 4/5 flyer that doesn't actually make any tokens. Like you need other things on top of this to go off. I think this card is like worth flagging, but I suspect it's not going to be one we're especially excited about playing in the long term.
yeah, that's why I stuck it into C minus. Like, maybe, but probably not. All right, next card, Halia, Guided by Light. 2 and a white for a 3/3. Whenever Halia or another creature or artifact enters, you gain 1 life. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if you gained 3 or more life this turn. It has warp for a single white. So you may be looking at this like, Jer, why is this in the set review? And why have you given it a C? And there are several decks I think this could go in. There's the classic Soul Sisters archetype that is continuously gets more cards. I also played a Mardu mid-range life gain deck like maybe 10 years ago, and it was much more real than I suspected, and this card would be excellent in that deck. So it should probably get a C minus, but because it goes into one of my decks, I bumped it up.
Yeah, I think this card is kind of dorky, but we'll see. I could definitely see myself dying to it.
Yeah. And this is the kind of engine that draws you cards is exactly what that type of deck wants. Up next, Lightstall Inquisitor. Single white
Speaking
mana
of dorky,
for a 2/1 Angel Wizard. A lot of Angel Wizards in this set. I do take exception with this one because it only has Vigilance, no flying. Way to ruin my headcanon that all angels fly. When this creature enters, each opponent exiles a card from their hand and may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Each spell cast this way costs 1 more to cast. Each land plays this way enters tapped.
You have this as a B, eh? I don't think this card is playable, to be honest.
Interesting. I just think it's like a pretty solid taxes card. It's just like pretty annoying.
The body is just like so miserable, and the effect, like they get to choose. If you got to choose which card it was, I would be much higher on it. But I just think like the odds that this has much impact on the curve of your opponent are just not that high. This is an interesting one to flicker. Like if you can start recurring it, it's more interesting for sure. But yeah, for me, I am not super high on the old X1.
Maybe I miss. I just think we are still sometimes thinking in the frame that like people are playing Pyroclasm, Arc Trail, and Forked Bolt, and those cards just don't see literally any play anymore. So
no, but like Orcish Bowmasters is like all over the format, and that's like a really miserable one. And like Fury is also a card that you're going to play against a lot. Like I'm not saying that you like can never play an X1, and obviously this one costs 1 mana, which is like where you want to be if you're playing an X1. I'm just not convinced that Savannah lines with upside. Like I'm not sure this is enough.
Tough but fair.
I would have this as a C, but it's your review, so B it is.
Up next, I'll come down to C+. Up next, Pinnacle Starcage. 1 white. When this artifact when this artifact enters, exile all artifacts and creatures with mana value 2 or less until this artifact leaves the battlefield. Then it has an activated ability, 6 white. Put each card exiled with this artifact into its owner's graveyard. Then create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token for each card put into a graveyard this way. Sacrifice this artifact.
Interesting that sacrificing the artifact is not part of the cost. So like if it gets stifled, you actually still get to keep it.
Yeah.
Kind of neat. This was clearly the card they printed thinking it would keep Corey Steelcutter in check, and we were never even going to get to find out if that was true.
I mean, temporary lockdown was in standard.
Yeah, not doing it.
Yeah, so I think they had a pretty clear analogous situation. Yeah,
and I think that's the right card to compare it to for Highlander's sake is temporary lockdown.
Yeah, and temporary lockdown I think has seen some play, not a lot. I think an artifact is slightly better than an enchantment just because it's slightly easier to find. Although most of the decks that would care about the fact that it's an artifact won't play it because it exiles artifacts that cost 2 or less.
Artifacts, yeah.
So I think it's basically just a like white X control card if you feel like you need this type of effect. I don't think
it is nice that it has flexibility of being good against some of the combo decks in the format while also being an anti-aggro
yeah,
card.
exactly. Like it gets like Paradox Academy. It's very good with into Citadel. It's very good, and it's like sometimes good into some of the other combo decks because it notably doesn't say non-land, so it exiles the artifact lands too. So any deck playing those, you can
which is a difference between it and
that is true,
and temporary lockdown.
So this is probably better for Highlander.
Yeah,
for the decks that want it, and the ability may come up eventually. You never know. But yeah,
it's nice to have.
Yeah, pretty niche card, I think, but will be good sometimes. Like people will lose to this for sure. Up next, we have Rescue Skiff, 5 and a white for our first spacecraft. I think maybe the only.
I think it might be the only spacecraft.
It needs. All right, so we'll explain station and spacecraft. So spacecraft all have a station ability that says tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft. Station only as a sorcery, and once it hits the like station number that's in the bottom left, it becomes a creature. Some of them have multiple abilities. The last one is always the one where it becomes a creature. This one requires 10 counters and it becomes a 5/6 flyer.
This one's on the list at my behest, honestly. I think this card is interesting. Not currently necessarily, but it does open up some kind of interesting deck building options where this is like a tinkerable reanimation spell for creatures or enchantments. So like in my brain starts going to like, how can we build like a Tinker Omni Reanimator shell or something like that, where you kind of have like a bunch of monsters and then maybe you're using the artifact ramp package with Tolarian Academy and Tinker to either like ramp up to being able to cast them, or you are also discarding them and you're either like hard casting or tinkering for Rescue Skiff, or maybe you're getting Portal to Phyrexia and then you are planning to just reanimate your own monsters. I think this card is just like interesting enough as like another piece in a deck that does not currently exist but like could exist potentially, that it was worth talking about. But obviously, like I don't think that you like immediately go put this in Paradox Academy and are very happy about it or anything. It's no Depth Shaker Titan.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Scout for Survivors. 2 and a white sorcery. Return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of them. I think this is the best. We've had a few versions of these cards before. Most of them get 2 creatures. This one gets up to 3. So it can just unearth a 3-drop. You can get a 2-drop and a 1-drop, or 3 1-drops. And I think putting a counter on each of them is not irrelevant for some decks.
This is definitely the best version of this effect they've ever printed. Whether or not that means it's playable is...
Yeah, I'm considering putting it into Aristocrats. It's close. I may test it. But yeah, once again, it's just the best one they've printed, so if any of them get there, it's probably this one.
I agree.
Up next, we've got Seam Rip. 1 white mana for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. It is the enchantment version of Portable Hole. Liam, go.
Yeah, I just think this one is like maybe a bit playable. Like you like 1 mana a lot, I think, and in the white decks that are not in like exactly red or black, I think that sometimes you do end up reaching for some kind of questionable removal spells. Like we're still playing like Get Lost some amount of the time, or like Declaration in Stone even occasionally pops up, and I think this card is better than those just on efficiency. Obviously, Portable Hole being an artifact is like better and worse for a variety of reasons, but I think on average an enchantment is a little harder to kill too, like especially against like say like the black red decks of the world. So it's just like, I think it's a reasonable card, and I think that it's one that you will see yourself reaching for. Like a lot of the time these like blue white decks that are maybe splashing green or maybe not splashing at all like end up needing to play some pretty awkward removal, and this is I think an upgrade for those kinds of decks.
Yep. All right. Up next, we've got Starfield Shepherd. This is 3 white for a 3/2 flying angel. When this creature enters, search your library for a basic plains card or a creature card with mana value 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle, and it has warp for 1 and a white. I think there's a world where a deck wants to play this. I think the warp abilities are sneaky valuable, because not only do you get the ETB, which is like in this case is just a card, like getting a basic plains or a 1-drop for 2 mana is not embarrassing. And you also sort of draw a 3/2 flyer that gets to do this again for 5. So you're sort of getting 2 cards worth of value out of this warp ability. And yeah, I'm sort of getting higher and higher on these warp cards the more I think about them.
This is one I think the warp effects like on cards like this are ones I'm gonna have to like see to really fully evaluate. Like this card doesn't look playable to me, but because I mostly just have a hard time imagining being able to pay 2 mana for this effect without the body or 5 mana for this effect with the body, but getting both might mean that it is worth it, right? Like the fact that you
yeah,
like,
and if it was
like,
either or,
get it on
like if the
layaway.
creature got sacrificed instead, like I would not be in. But
yeah, it'll be interesting. I think this is one of those ones that's going to be challenging to evaluate until we actually get to play with them. But I think you're right that like the text box on this ETB is like interesting enough that like maybe it's good. Like white has a couple of really good 1-drops, and having the flexibility of also finding a land is nice.
Well, there are a bunch of white decks that already play kind of like a toolboxy 1-drop suite for Ranger of Eos and Ranger Captain of Eos. And so it's not like you would need to change your deck to put that toolbox in. Like it fits in and already accesses a pre-built toolbox. So that's 100%. Where I see it. Up next, we got Sunstar Chaplain. 1 and a white for a 3/2 human cleric. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. 2 and remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control. Tap target artifact or creature. I put this in because it seemed like it did something with +1/+1 counters, and then it got clunkier and worse the more I looked at it, so I stuck it in C-. But it's like kind of aggressive. It's like kind of disruptive, but just I think probably not good enough at either to get in. But
yeah, it's awkward because it is pretty unlikely it's getting a counter the turn it enters, because you're playing it on turn 2. So like unless you play it on turn 3 after going 1-drop 2-drop or something, you're not necessarily getting a counter right away. And by turn 3, it's like kind of hard to imagine that you're getting in and not having some kind of trades happen or something like that. So I see it as being kind of challenging to get this effect. It is a cleric. I don't know. Maybe the cleric's deck is going to be there now. I haven't looked back at clerics in a while, but you know, like, this is another playable cleric probably. And then like the 2 mana effect.
S tier clerics.
It's pretty close, yeah. The 2 mana like remove a counter to tap something is I think unlikely to be something you're especially interested in doing unless it's gonna like win the game. Which obviously, if it is gonna do that, I mean it's kind of just bonus effects.
All right, moving on. We got Sunstar Expansionist. 1 and a white for a 2/3 human knight. When this creature enters, if an opponent controls more lands than you, create a lander token. If you're unfamiliar, a lander token is an artifact with 2 tap, sack it, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, so rampant growth basically. And it has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. I put this card in here because I'm building a landfall aggro deck, and I think this card will be good in that deck. It's like not terribly far away from a 2-mana 3/3, and in that deck where I'm planning to landfall like from turn 3 onwards, like 2+ times a turn, a 2-mana 4/3 is getting into like pretty good territory. Plus, if you ever get the lander token, you're laughing.
It's helping to trigger the landfall. I think the issue that I see with this card is that I'm not convinced that these lander tokens are going to be super useful for a lot of decks. But I mean, I guess we'll see. Like,
yeah, so like in my evaluation of this card, I'm basically playing it as a 2-mana 2/3 with the landfall ability, and if I get the lander token, I see that as a bonus.
Fair enough.
But like in this deck that's in my mind, it's basically most of the time probably attacking as a 2-mana 4/3, and I'm okay with that. Up next we have Cerebral Download. It's 4 and a blue for an instant. Surveil X, where X is the number of artifacts you control, then draw 3 cards. There is a subset of the Paradox Academy group that doesn't want to play wheels anymore and wants to play big, like
non-symmetrical draw spells.
Yeah, exactly. They want to cut the wheels, and probably all except for Time Spiral. That card's broken, but yeah, and this could be one. I think there's probably better options without looking too closely, but
no, but like if you're Paradox Academy and if this card's reading like Surveil 5, draw 3, that's got to be pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I put it in. I'm just not convinced it's one of like, it's good enough to beat out the other options that are available, but there's a world where it gets into that version where you want to cut all the wheels. Up next we have Cryo Shatter. It's 1 blue for an enchantment aura. You enchant creature. The enchanted creature gets -5/-0. When that creature becomes tapped or is dealt damage, destroy it. This is probably, we've been getting a kind of slew of 1 blue aura removal spells recently. We got Unable to Scream in Duskmourn and Sleep Magic in Final Fantasy. I think this one is probably worse than both of those, but it's like on the edge of being playable. So if you're playing something like Blue Moon or Blue Green, where your removal options, especially for dealing with big things, are not especially abundant, I could see playing this alongside the other ones.
Yeah. I just had a question. I don't know. Maybe you can answer this as well. I know we're going by set number. Did we skip consult the star charts for some reason?
No.
It appears later?
Yeah, okay. Don't worry. Yeah.
Lovely. Yep. I'm just following along by set number.
Yeah, I see your confusion, and there's a reason. And
lovely.
No,
I will answer the Cryo Shatter question then. Yeah, I think this one is just like fine. I don't know. Like if you want the third one of this effect, it's probably the third best. The fact that this has outs to actually destroy the creature is kind of nice. Mm-hmm. It's not like nothing, I guess, but to me, like Unable to Scream gives it no abilities, which is pretty huge, and Sleep Magic, same way, same thing.
Taps it.
Or taps it forever. Yeah, so like this one I think is a little bit worse because the creature gets to keep their abilities, and
I think Unable to Scream is pretty clearly the best one to me. But
yeah, I think that's probably right. But this having outs to actually destroy the thing in blue is like not nothing. I think is sort of where I'm at.
And then up next we have Emissary Escort, 1 and a blue for a 0/4 artifact creature robot soldier. This creature gets +X/+0, where X is the greatest mana value among other artifacts you control. And I gave this a C+ because I think it looks like a pretty good like affinity battle bots card. Like that's typically a proactive deck where you're able to jump up the curve either with like affinity for artifacts cards, or you probably have a bunch of fast mana and or soul mana, so you typically go higher up the curve than normal. So something like a Thought Monitor or a Mirror Enforcer, and all of a sudden you're cracking in for 7 with your 2-drop, and it's got 4 toughness. Like, that seems pretty appealing to me. So
yeah. You really,
and I think it's in the best color too. Good. Like, blue is in like basically all of those decks. So
yeah, I think so. I think that the blue decks are the ones that are going to be the best at fulfilling this condition as well, which is true, which is nice. I will say the one problem with this card is that the low rolls are really low because it doesn't count itself. So it is an 0-4 until you put something else in play. But the high rolls, I think, make it worth it. And the affinity kind of aggro style decks are predicated on the high rolls anyway. So I think it's fine to lean more into these kind of like high rolly starts that the deck is built around.
Yeah, I think of it kind of like a density aggro deck as opposed to like density combo. Yeah, density aggro. I did consult the star charts on its own page because I think it's the best card in the set, and we needed to do this for one of them. Fair enough. When I was originally, I had 3 cards per slide.
But then you realized you needed space.
And then I realized I needed camera space, so I changed to 2 cards, and I offset in rearranging the slides. I should have put consult back one before the other one, but
makes sense.
No fear, it is here. Consult the star charts. 1 in a blue for an instant. It has kicker for also another 1 in a blue. You look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of lands you control. Put 1 of those cards into your hand, and if this spell was kicked, put 2 of those cards into your hand instead. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. This card is pretty great. It's like very acceptable to just cast this on turn 2 if you have nothing else. Into the late game, anytime you kick it, it will be great. Getting 2 of the top 4 is, take that all day. If you top deck it in the really late game when you have 6 or 7 lands, it's just dig through time. Many blue decks will play this. I think it'll get played in combo decks. I think it'll get played in control decks. I think it'll get played in mid-range decks. It might get played in some tempo decks. I think it's at its best in the time walk decks, actually, after thinking quite a bit about it. Because it's spell seekerable, and it's one of the better card advantage spells to spell seeker.
This is a really juiced card advantage seeker target,
especially if you don't have recall in your deck. So if you're a time walk deck and you want a spell seeker for a card advantage spell, this is the best one that will be in your deck.
I think you are pretty rarely going to be happy casting this on 2 for what it's worth. Like 2 mana instant speed sleight of hand is not the reason you've put this card in your deck. Like, obviously as like an escape valve, you're gonna do it, but I think I read this card as like a 4. It's like I read it as being a 4-drop that has the escape valve of being castable for 2 versus the other way around. I don't think that this is like an early cantrip that you're like happy to draw late. I think you're hoping to cast this later with kicker, but you're willing to cast it early to smooth out your draw.
I agree that's the main mode, and I think you're basically only ever casting this on turn 2 when you have nothing else to do, basically. But just having more things in your deck that you can do if you hold up a counter spell and your combo opponent does nothing that you care about is very nice. So
100%.
Yeah. This card is great, and my pick for best card in the set for Highlander.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Up next, Memnenin, the right hand. It is a 3/4 flying legendary creature jellyfish advisor. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast artifact spells from the top of your library. Artifacts you control have tap, add blue, spend this mana only to cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand. I put this in because it's similar to the Assassin's Creed card, the Crystal Skull, and there's that other 4 mana colorless one. Can't
Mystic
remember
Forge?
Pardon?
Forge? Mystic Forge?
Yeah, that one. Well,
Yeah.
kind of similar to those. But it doesn't... It's a creature, so basically it's a creature, so it's worse. And not an artifact, so it's also worse.
It does make mana in a way that those cards don't, which is not
Yeah,
nothing. Like,
that's its redeeming quality, I think. It does have, like, almost the Urza mana ability, but yet again, slightly
it
worse.
is worse, unfortunately.
Because Urza has the ability himself, so summoning sick artifacts can tap for mana, whereas this gives the ability to the artifact. So if you're making, like, a bunch of Thopters with Saheeli or something, they can't tap for mana the turn they come into play. I've been thinking more and more about a mono blue version of Paradox that just, like, solves the awkward mana issues in that deck. And it's possible it goes into that version, but I'll have to look at it. That deck is very much still in the theoretical, lives in my brain stage. So yeah. Up next, Moonlit Meditation. 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchant artifact or creature you control. The first time you would create one or more tokens each turn, you may instead create that many tokens that are copies of enchanted permanent. I know some people have been talking about doing some stuff with this card. It seems kind of janky to me, but just because there's been chatter about it, I mostly threw it in. What do you think of this one?
I think this card is like pretty fine. It's not like tremendously exciting. There's probably some kind of combo you could assemble, but this card was pretty low on my list.
Cool.
I don't know.
Me too. Moving on. Quantum Riddler. 3 blue for a 4/6 flying Sphinx. When this creature enters, draw a card. As long as you have one or fewer cards in hand, if you would draw one or more cards, you draw that many cards plus 1 instead. Warp, 1 and a blue. This is the one that sort of got me thinking about the warp cards. And I actually think this card is fine. It looks really clunky. But, like, would I pay 1 and a blue for a sorcery that drew me a card, or, sorry, 2 cards, and one of them was this 4/6 flyer? And I think I would.
I think the answer is yes.
Because
the 4/6 flyer draws a card too.
Exactly.
When it comes in on 5. So it's
like the odds of the 4/6 flyer being the last thing you cast and secretly drawing you 2 cards is, like, definitely not 0. So
well, yeah, it also means that, like, later it's 1 or fewer, right? So you can have one
need
card
to be your last card, second to last.
No,
card.
you can have 1 and go up to 3.
Yeah.
And it also means, like, this also doesn't say other than your draw step. So, like, once this card's in play, you're potentially going from, like, 1 card up to 3. You can, like, play a land and another card. Like, it is a pretty effective draw engine. And costing 5 instead of 6 is, like, I think really important. Like, cards like Consecrated Sphinx are, like, log out of the format and not things that you can consider playing.
Well, also this has the, like, you're almost always going to warp this card unless you literally top deck it and have, like, less than, you have 5 lands. Because even if you had 7 lands, I think you would warp it and then cast it. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm pretty cautiously optimistic on this one, I would say.
Yeah, me too. And I think this is another one, like, it's worth flagging. Like, this is another one that plays really nicely with Ephemerate, or other flicker effects, like 2 mana, draw a card, Ephemerate it, draw another card. It doesn't disappear from warp.
On your upkeep, Ephemerate it again.
Yeah, draw some more cards.
Oof.
Like, I'm
just
saying. Yeah, I'm just saying. Like, a lot of these warp cards, they like Ephemerate.
They like the cheats. All right, up next, we have another really exciting card. Scour for Scrap. 3 and a blue for an instant. Choose one or both. I've seen lots of people miss that or both.
Miss the both, yeah.
Which is definitely where this card...
It's why the card is good.
Yeah. So it has 2 modes. First one, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Second mode, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Um, yeah, so this is kind of similar to Tezzeret in the places it will go. But actually, I'm kind of more excited about this card than Tezzeret. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this card is actually more powerful than
Maybe I
Tezzeret. It's
flip-flopped
interesting.
their grades. Maybe Tezzeret should
Yeah,
have been the A-. This should have been the
that's
A.
what I was. I didn't want us to get into a debate on the literal second card of the set review, but I didn't have Tezzeret rated as highly as this one. I think the big thing about this card that is sneaky is that it's an instant. So one of the big things about Time Vault, especially, but even all of the kind of the combo decks like Lotus Breach as well. A lot of their tutoring has to be face up at sorcery speed, and it means that if you're playing counter spells as your way of interacting, you can kind of like feel as though if they pass into you, that if you spend your turn not doing that much but passing back with counter magic up, you're probably going to get to try and interact with something. And what this does is it kind of flips that, and it makes it so that if they leave counter magic up, yeah, like, so you get to pressure them immediately on their end step, which matters a lot. It basically, you get to say, hey, okay, are you going to interact with my tutor now? And then, you know, they can decide. But it's pretty significant, I think, having an instant speed tutor of this quality and of this mana cost. I know a lot of people are like, oh, but it's more expensive than Fabricate. But to me, that's just not a thing that makes me...
The instant speed and, like, recursion
and the regrowth element, are really important.
This card is potentially even good in, like, really good in Storm, because if you have Lotus, you can functionally cast this for 1 mana because you use Lotus mana to cast it, rebuy Lotus, go get LED, and you're just up a quadrillion mana.
100%.
Quadrillion,
no, there's
meaning 5 in this case, but also a lot of Storm.
There's a lot. There's definitely
mana is nuts.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things this card does. And it even, like, if you're talking about like some of the other Storm decks, like I don't think you would play this in Citadel Storm, but it's like not nothing that this could go get Aetherflux Reservoir as well, which I think is kind of interesting. Like, I could even see playing this card in High Tide. Like, that's a deck that like wouldn't mind having an instant speed tutor, like being able to go like end of turn, like cast a tutor that tries to go get Sapphire Medallion or Aetherflux Reservoir or whatever.
Candelabra.
Candle, yeah, exactly. I just think the instant on this card is the thing that really pushes it. Like, if this was a sorcery, it would be like a C, but because it's an instant, it's like an A. It's like, I think this card's really good. Like, I would have this card as an A. I think this is
I think
a card that's going to see
this card backwards.
Going to see play in basically all of the artifact combo decks, and honestly, like, even probably play in some of the, like, I wouldn't necessarily call Storm an artifact combo deck, but I think they're still interested in this kind of card.
Yeah, very possibly. And in Storm, you could also go get like Defense Grid or something like that. So,
well, all these decks you can do that too. That's the other thing you get to do with this. Is like, you could even cast it when you know you have a protected win on the next turn to go get Grid or something else. I really like this card. I think it's very cool.
Very good. All right, up next, Weft Walking, 4 blue for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, if you cast it, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards. The first spell each player casts during each of their turns may be cast without paying its mana cost. I added this in because I've seen some people talking about it. It's a one-sided time spiral.
Like an asymmetrical draw 7. But boy, you better be winning once you cast this thing, because giving your opponent a free spell a turn when you're a combo
planning
deck
to win the turn you tap out
for a 6-drop
for a 6-mana wheel.
Yeah, I agree.
So, like, yeah.
I'm pretty low on this one.
Me too. Hence the D.
Yeah.
Speaking of cards I'm low on, Archenemy's Charm. Black for an instant. Choose one of 3 modes. Mode 1, exile target creature or planeswalker. That's fine. Mode 2, return 1 or 2 target creature and or planeswalker cards from your graveyard to your hand. Medium. Mode 3, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. It gains lifelink until end of turn. Also pretty medium. The reason I don't like this card is there's no mode that's just like always on and good. Like, there's no proactive mode. Like
Archmage's Charm always drawing 2 cards as the fail case is like really
or
nice and makes the
Archdruid's
prohibitive mana
Charm,
cost.
the green one,
Yeah,
always
always
being
finding a
able to get
land
a
or
land or a creature. Like,
Yeah,
there's no mode on this card where it's just always good. If this mode was like make 2/2/2s or something, I might be on board. Or more, maybe if
yeah,
this mode was make 2/2/2s,
yeah.
something like
I
that. But
I will say, this is a bit of a tangent. I am looking forward to, or maybe am terrified of, what the red version of this card is going to look like, because I kind of think the red version might be one that we go, huh?
price of progress, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Like, depending on what kind of set it gets printed in, because it's weird, right? Like, Archmage's Charm got printed in a Modern Master set, and then the other two ones got printed in standard legal sets. Is that right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, I
No, I think
definitely
that's right.
played a sealed with the Karlov Manor was Archdruid's Charm.
But Archmage's Charm is Modern Horizons 1. So like
Yeah.
basically a standard legal set at this point. But
Yeah, I mean, these days.
Yeah. I think it's not that good. I'm not that excited about this one. The casting cost is just like so prohibitive.
We agree. Moving on. Elegy Acolyte. 2 black for a 4/4 human cleric with lifelink. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose 1 life. And then it has a void ability. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. I really like this card. I am immediately gonna put it into my Rakdos midrange deck. My version goes a little bit bigger than some of the other versions. Plays a few 4s and Chaos Defiler as a 5-drop. I think this card is exactly what we're looking for. 4/4 with lifelink is a great body. Immediately comes down and generates card advantage if I have a board. If creatures are dying and or I'm casting removal spells, which is often a thing that happens in matches involving Rakdos, it makes tokens. Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm lower on this card than you are. I just think that it costing 4 and it being fairly telegraphed, like in order to get value out of, is like pretty awkward, because you're incentivized to cast it pre-combat, which then means your opponent gets to make like an informed decision about whether or not they want the card or if they care about you getting a 2/2 robot, like a lot of the time. But I don't know. I'm willing to be proven wrong. I just think we've gotten a lot of versions of 4 mana black card that makes you draw cards on combat damage. This might be the one with the most keywords on it, like lifelink, and also has the potential to make more bodies. So like maybe it's good enough, but thus far none of the other effects that have been similar to this have been needle movers for me.
Yeah, this is definitely a Buffalo card where like I want every piece of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even maybe without lifelink I would be like a bunch less excited, or if it had 3 toughness a bunch less excited, but because it has all of the things, I'm in.
You're
I'm
in.
at least gonna play it a bunch until I decide not to.
Fair enough.
Up next we have Faller's Faithful. 2 and a black for a 3/1 human wizard. When this creature enters, destroy up to 1 other target creature. If that creature wasn't dealt damage this turn, its controller draws 2 cards.
This card's so cool.
It is very, very cool. So it doesn't say creature your opponents control. So like, to me, the decks that get to play this are like Tokens and Aristocrats, where the default mode is you're just shooting one of your own things.
Like a piece of chaff and you're turning it into 2 cards.
Which is pretty good. Like Aristocrats at least already plays all the 1 mana versions that do that, and then you're basically playing 2 mana for a 3/1, which isn't the best, but also not the worst.
But the flexibility is
creatures
so nice.
Are valuable. And also, it's just an out to any creature. Like, if your opponent happens to Atraxa you and you have this, you're like, yeah, I'll shoot Atraxa.
Take 2 cards.
You get 2 more cards, whatever. You just got, like, 7 of the best 10. What are 2 more? And now you get to attack. Like, yeah, I think the flexibility this card offers, as well as just the power level. Like, if you're killing a token or, like, an Aristocrat's chaff card that's worth like basically nothing, getting 2 cards out of it is amazing.
It's also like in the tokens deck, especially a lot of the times you're making attacks where your opponent is like chump or is, you're like chump attacking a lot, and this lets you kind of like punish your opponent for maybe like making a block with like their barrel goif blocks one of your tokens and then just dies for no value. Like
exactly.
You get to punish them that way too.
Yeah. All right. Up next we have Sunset Sabotur, 1 and a black, 4/1 human rogue with menace. Ward, discard a card, and whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature an opponent controls. What do you think?
This is a funky card. I like this card. I think the stat line is really aggressive, and the ward plus the menace mean that it's going to be kind of a nightmare to deal with in combat. The reason why I think that the downside of putting +1/+1 counters on your opponent's creatures is not too extreme for me is that the menace means that they're not like immediately getting value if they just like play a 2-drop after you play your 2-drop. And because you're in black, it's like not that unreasonable to think that you're doing something like attacking on turn 3, putting a counter on whatever they've played, and then just killing it anyway. So I think that a lot of the times the pattern with this is going to be such that the +1/+1 counter doesn't matter too much. And I also really like this as a way to clock combo. It's like a really aggressive fast clock, which I think is also something that is pretty interesting. It also has 2 pretty nice creature types, human, rogue. Like there are some minor tie-ins for those, especially human. We've definitely seen people put some human stacks together, and this is one where if you like Thalia's Lieutenant this or something like that, like start getting it as a 5/5/2, like that's pretty interesting. So
up next we have Timeline Color, black for a 2/2 Drix Warlock with haste. Is this the first Drix?
Yeah,
I don't recognize it as an already existing creature type.
I believe it is the first.
Interesting. You may cast this card from your graveyard using its warp ability, warp, black, and pay 2 life. Some people have been talking about this. There's just an abundance of black recursive threats. I'm not a big fan of them because most of them have pretty dumpy stat lines. Like, I just don't think 2/2 haste for 2 is good enough anymore.
Yeah,
for the most part.
I think that's the reality with this card is that your opponent is going to warp it. You're going to take the 2, and then it's going to sit in exile. And I'm going to say, if you want to pay double black for a 2/2 haste, you got it.
Go nuts.
Yeah, I just have a hard time. Like I'm never blocking this unless I absolutely have to, because why would I let it go into the graveyard where you actually get to play it at a rate that feels remotely reasonable?
Or like it's just going to be a free block. Like,
yeah,
you're just gonna have a anything in play.
Yeah, I have a really hard time seeing this card doing much, to be honest.
Excellent, we concur. I have been coming around on Sunset Saboteur though. I was kind of low on it to begin with, and I'm starting to see the light.
I think it's good. I don't think it's like going to be in every deck, but I can see it.
Yeah. Up next we have Umbreal Collar Zealot, 1 and a black for a 3/2 human cleric. Sacrifice another creature or artifact, surveil 1. This card is great in Aristocrats. I in my versions have been looking for another free sack outlet that costs less than 3. I find, especially for sack outlets, I just want them to be as cheap as possible, and this satisfies that. And 3/2 for 2 is actually just like a fine body, honestly. So
yeah, I had thought about whether or not you would ever play this in Flash Hulk instead of Viscera Seer, and I think the answer is no, because it can't sacrifice itself, which is noteworthy. But it is worth keeping in mind that you can get this plus Sam plus Cat plus Sylvan Safekeeper. Like, you actually have an extra mana to play with, so to speak, in that combo, and I wonder if surveilling is enough better than scrying that you would ever consider it. I don't think the answer is yes, but it's something to think about.
Yep.
Also, it's another cleric, so cleric's deck online, coming to a storefront near you.
Up
Now
next,
for a card that I read wrong at first. I thought this card
Yeah.
was nuts when I first read it.
we have Zoo Ifit Osteoharmonist. 1 black for a 2/3 human wizard. Tap. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a skeleton in addition to its other types and has no abilities.
Yeah, I missed that part.
Activate only as a sorcery.
Yeah, I thought this was just reanimating things for a tap, and I was like, wow, this card's great. They finally did it. And then I saw the new abilities part, and I was like, they didn't do it. How could they do this to me? There might be some stuff you can do with this that's kind of neat, but I don't think you're that interested in getting back things with no abilities.
Like, in a really graveyardy deck, if they don't kill this, it represents a lot of value. But I just think the value engines are too good these days, and this is just gonna die if it's gonna matter. Like,
I don't think this is a hard sell for me.
Yeah, I clearly me too, because I got graded as a D. So yeah. Moving on. Red cards. Caveron Harrier. 1 red for a 2/1 robot soldier. Whenever this creature attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 2/2 colorless robot creature token that's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice that token at end of combat.
Yeah, I think that text is like just bonus. Yeah. I don't know how often you're gonna do it.
But it's also an artifact creature, so like potentially gets into some of those decks, potentially gets into like the ham red deck RDW decks that are still playing 1 mana 2/1s. Like,
I think so. I think it's like, I think you've graded it perfectly. No notes. This is a card that some people will play at some point, probably. It's better than many of the 2/1s you could play.
Yeah. Up next, Nova Hellkite. 3 red for a 4/5 dragon with flying and haste. When this creature enters, it deals 1 damage to target creature an opponent controls and has warp for 2 and a red. I just think this thing's clunky as hell.
It's pretty clunky, yeah. Like the fact it gets to attack the turn it comes in, the turn you warp it is like not nothing. But I think the fact that it only does 1 damage is like, people
I
are
wanted that to be 2 so badly.
Yeah, me too. People are already so mindful of like not playing things that die to Orcish Bowmasters that like this just is unlikely to kill all that much in like 2025 Canadian Highlander, unfortunately. So like, I don't know what else you can really do. But I think it's close. But I agree with you. I don't think we're gonna play it.
Up next,
heroic card.
You get this one, yeah.
So this is Pain for All. This is 2 and a red for an enchantment. Aura. It says enchant creature you control. As this aura enters, enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. And then whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. Sorry. So what's kind of cool is that this is a removal spell or a way to push damage over the top if you create a like giant thing that is having a hard time getting through. Yeah, it's either or. And then it also makes it so that chump blocking a large threat is no longer as interesting because is still going to push damage through, which is kind of nice. I also am keeping an eye on how many of these, like whenever this creature takes damage, deal damage to each opponent you control or your opponent controls, effects they keep printing. Like, we're getting up there. Like, it might be time to sleeve up the Volcano Helion is all I'm saying. I have dreams of being able to play that deck, and they keep printing more and more cards that combo with it. The obvious one also that Fiery Covenant is the other one that combos with those kinds of effects really well.
Blasphemous Act.
Yeah, Blasphemous Act, great too. But I don't know. I think this one's pretty interesting. I'm gonna put it in the heroic deck that I've been playing, the one that has red as a splash. I think it's pretty exciting to be able to put this into play and maybe deal like 4 or 5 damage either to a creature or just directly to your opponent. I think that's quite enticing.
The art is kind of sick.
The art is very cool. Yeah. I'm pretty high on this card. I mean, I don't think that it's a card you're going to play in every red deck necessarily or anything like that, but I'm pretty excited about it.
Yep. Up next we have Plasma Bolt. 1 red for a sorcery, deals 2 damage to any target, and has Void, which is if an online permanent or has left the battlefield or a spell was warped, it deals 3 damage instead. This does a semi-reasonable Chain Lightning impression. if you're in the market for Chain Lightning number 3 or 4, this is probably one of the better ones.
Yeah, like this is a good RDW card, but it's probably not a
the
whole
reason
lot
it's
better.
good is because it says any target. Like, you can go upstairs. Most of these other ones they've been printing say to creature or planeswalker,
Yeah,
and this lets you go
but
upstairs.
this is an actual shock.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta drop out. I'm gonna let you finish the set review.
Excellent.
But
Thank you
Godspeed,
for,
good luck.
Thank you for joining me.
Yes, have fun.
Going solo from here on out. Tanuk Steadfast second. 2 red for a 3/5 legendary creature Kavu pilot. Other creatures you control have haste. Artifact cards and red creatures in your hand have warp 2 and a red. This card is really cool. I'm not sure exactly the home for it. It's like kind of a pseudo bad sneak attack. And I wouldn't be surprised if I die to this. Also, the one-sided other creatures you control have haste is pretty valuable a lot of the time. Yeah, just has a lot of cool text. 3/5 for 4 is a pretty good body. Dodges basically all the red removal. Yeah, powerful ability. Be interesting to see if it finds a home anywhere, and or yeah, if anyone can kind of break it. Up next is a card I found really hard to evaluate. Terra Pact Intimidator. 1 and a red for a 2/1 Kavu Scout. When this creature enters, target opponent may have you create 2 lander tokens. If they don't, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this creature. So to me, it's just a lot of value. It's a 2 mana 4/3 or 3 rectangles, 2 of which are artifacts. And maybe there's no deck that can utilize that kind of split. It is kind of punishery, so like your opponent's always going to choose the one that is better for them, worse for you. But both modes are good. So I don't know. I just wanted to note this card just because I think it's a cool design and one I would like to see more of. The last couple red cards we're going to talk about: Weapons Manufacturing. 1 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control enters, create a colorless artifact token named Munitions with, when this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. I put this in the D category just because I don't really see where it's going to go. I know some people are excited about it, but without a way to sacrifice the munitions, like I just wanted them to have like 2 sack or something, and then it can shock something like that. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. It does make a lot of artifacts, which is definitely nice, but you need a way to sack artifacts, and I'm just not sure where the home is, basically. Up next we have Weft Stalker Ardent. 2 and a red for a 2/3 Drix Artificer. Another Drix. Whenever another creature or artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent and has warp for a red. We're starting to get a density of creatures and things with this text. It's not hard to get creatures and artifacts to enter. There are definitely ways to do it ad nauseum. So at some point, there will be a combo deck that utilizes these cards, and having a warp 1 for 1 red is probably going to be pretty nice. I don't think we're there yet, but just add another one to the pile. Onto the green cards. This one I found pretty hard to evaluate. Edge Rover. Single green for a 2/2 artifact creature robot scout. It has reach, and when this creature dies, each player creates a lander token. So it's kind of veteran explorer-esque. But it's a 2/2 with reach, so it's like kind of an aggressive card. Both players get a lander token. Hard to evaluate. But cool card nonetheless. Might see play somewhere. Like, 1 green 2/2s, you know, see play on occasion. I'm kind of sad Liam left before this one because he's really excited about this card. You Social Engineering, 3 green for an enchantment. Landfall, whenever a land you control enters, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. Warp for 1 and a green. So the play pattern with this one is on your turn 3, you warp it in, then play a fetch land, get 2 2/2s. Then on turn 5, hopefully you've ramped or played some sort of, you can play extra lands cards, and you play it and get to play a fetch land and make more 2/2s, and then you just ride the 2/2s 2/2 train to victory. I think it's just a little too clunky. Like, obviously it's great if that lines up, but if you don't have a fetch land on turn 3, warping this and playing a land is pretty miserable. Then your sort of engine card is face up. Yeah, I'm not sold on it, but I do see the potential. So I put it in C-, like probably niche playable. I'm not holding out hope, but we'll see. Up next, we have Famished Worldsire, 5 green for a 0/0 Leviathan. Ward 3. Ward 3 is pretty good. It has Devour Land 3. As this creature enters, you may sacrifice any number of lands. It enters with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters on it. That's potentially a lot of +1/+1 counters, assuming you're casting it with all lands. It's going to be a 24/24 Ward 3. This card's screaming for trample. When this card enters, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is this creature's power. Put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So assuming you hit at least a third lands, you're coming out even on lands. You're probably, assuming you play more than 33 lands, which a deck playing this would, more likely to hit more lands. So you're likely to be up lands. I don't know. It just does a lot of things. It's a huge dummy. Without trample, it's probably not good enough. But who knows? Somebody might do something with it. I wasn't especially sold on it, so I gave it a C-, but we'll see. Up next card that is definitely not a C-, Frenzied Baloth. Green for a 3/2 beast. And look at this text box. This spell can't be countered. Trample haste. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Combat damage can't be prevented. This is great aggressive card. Yeah, just amazing text, good body, great keywords. The one knock against it is the double green casting cost. But yeah, this card is great and is gonna ruin many a blue player's day, many a One Rings day. Definitely lots of good applications. So yeah, excited to sleeve this one up and get them. Up next is Fungal Colossus, 6 and a green for a 5/5 fungus beast. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the number of differently named lands you control. In Highlander, this condition is pretty easy to meet since most of the lands you play are going to be differently named. It's just a matter of if the juice is worth the squeeze, sort of. Like, is it worth it to put this card in your deck? If you draw it late, you get a 1-mana 5/5. I don't think there's a deck that wants that like both puts a bunch of lands into play and wants a cheap 5/5 in the late game. But never know. Kind of a cool idea. So wanted to note its existence, basically. Up next, I'm really excited about this card, Ice Till Explorer. 2 green for a 2/4 Insect Scout. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. you may play lands from your graveyard, and whenever a land you control enters, mill a card. So those are 3 great abilities, and notably, I think it's the only, and if it's not the only, it's certainly the cheapest card that says both you may play an additional land and you may play lands from your graveyard. It's exceptional with Strip Mine, which is ironically also on the bonus sheet for this set, so careful going to your pre-releases and playing limited events, because it is possible for somebody to assemble this plus Strip Mine, which is hilarious and limited. In Highlander, it's just somewhat likely that if your opponent plays this, you're going to get Strip Mined. And I certainly intend to do that. Yeah, I think it's great that it's sort of 2 pieces of the Strip Mine combo at once. One of the big downsides to Strip Mine these days is I think Strip Mining your opponent once a turn is just not good enough anymore. Most decks are built to operate off of really low resources, and you're unlikely to be able to cut them off relevant enough spells to just for that to win you the game. So you need at least an Explorer going to make it worthwhile and game winning in most cases, I've found. And so the fact that this is Explorer plus Crucible on one card is really great. And the body's not half bad. It's green, so it's green sunnable. It's not legendary, so it's Eldritch Evolutionable. Like, it's ticks a lot of boxes. B+. Up next we have Loading Zone, 3 and a green for an enchantment. If one or more counters would be put on a creature, spacecraft, or planet you control, twice that many of those kinds of counters are put on it instead, and has warp for a green. I think the double counters cards are like, I don't think you want to play them when they cost this much mana. I don't think the warp for 1 turn is good enough either. I basically just think this one's too clunky. Like, you'd much rather play the cheaper ones that give you an additional counter, or the ones that are stapled to creatures. Up next is Mightform Harmonizer, 2 green for a 4/4 insect druid. Has a landfall ability. Whenever a land you control enters, double the power of target creature you control until end of turn, and has warp for 2 and a green. Yeah, so I'm as I mentioned previously, I'm workshopping a landfall mid-range aggressive deck, and this is where I want that card to go, and I think it'll be pretty good. Up next is Ouroboros, 2 green for a 1/3 plant worm. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is this creature's power. I know Jason is pretty excited about this card in tokens, potentially, like green tokens decks. Obviously pretty good if you can grow this creature's power, because putting multiple counters on all of your creatures every turn is pretty nuts. Notably, this puts counters on itself, which I just realized now. So the first turn it's going to put 1 counter. Second turn it's going to put 2 counters, and it says beginning of combat, so you get it immediately, so it turns itself into a 2/4, which is much harder to kill. Yeah, alright, I'm starting to get on board with this card. I didn't realize that it put counters on itself. That's pretty good. If you have a wide board, your opponent's going to die so quickly. So yeah, this definitely gets into counters decks, also probably into tokens. It's a lot of counters. Holy cow. Terra Symbiosis, 2 and a green enchantment. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you may draw that many cards. Do this only once each turn. I'm not sure. I haven't played the counters deck, so I'm not exactly sure about how it plays. But this seems like it might be worthwhile. I've always been a fan of, in those like high synergy decks, having cards that refuel sort of when you don't want to extend further, because the sort of nature of those density synergy decks is that you have to extend in order for your cards to be good, basically. And this is a card you can play that still benefits from your cards doing the thing, and instead of just furthering your board presence, it gets you more cards. And so I think these types of engines have definitely have a place in the format. I'm not exactly sure from a personal standpoint if this is something that Counter's deck is going to want, but I could see it, is basically all I'm saying. This type of thing is the type of thing I imagine that deck might want. Onto multicolor. Biotech Specialist, red-green for a 1/3 insect scientist. When this creature enters, create a lander token. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, this creature deals 2 damage to target opponent. So the floor is 4 mana for a 1/3, a rampant growth, and 2 damage to your opponent, which isn't the worst. But I could see this going into that weapons, munitions deck where you're sacrificing a bunch of artifacts and then it's dealing a ton of damage to your opponent. I think that's primarily where it's going to go, but the base case is also not bad. So, all right, up next we have Cosmogoyf, black-green for a star/1+star elemental Lurgoyf. Classic Lurgoyf power and toughness. This creature's power is equal to the number of cards you own in exile, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. And it's kind of gotta harken back to Akhan's run, which is the Tarmogoyf run, and it's alert. The flavor text is alert. Cosmogoyf, recommended action, run. So that's kind of funny. Nice little lore tidbit. This one is kind of hard to evaluate. I could see it in like a bug deck, maybe in like an Abzan deck where you're trying to do Ketramos things. And it has a lot of like potential spiky powers. Like if you have Tainted Pact, you could attack and your opponent might not block, and then they just die because you get to Tainted Pact this to their life total. Things like Relic of Progenitus and Nihil Spellbomb are really threatening with this card because you can just nug your own graveyard and get them. The fact that it doesn't work with other Goyfs is pretty awkward, especially well. But like even just things like Murktide Regent, Dig Through Time, Treasure Cruise, those types of things, like I could see it. Like, I don't know. I gave it a C+. It might not end up finding a home, but the potential is there. It's like not very expensive, 2 mana for this type of effect, and could be huge. Up next, Diadrene Synthesis Amalgam. X green white for a 0/1 legendary artifact creature construct with trample. Diadrene enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. So notably, it's got the really beneficial templating where it doesn't come in with X counters, it comes in with X+2 counters. The green and white mana you spend on it count for the counters. And it says, whenever you attack, you may remove a +1/+1 counter from each of 2 creatures you control. If you do, draw a card and create a 2/2 colorless artifact creature token. Really powerful. I think it's probably limited to +1/+1 counters decks, but I think it's probably going to be great in those decks is my read. Let me know if you think it's going to see play anywhere else. Up next, we have Genomorph Imago. Green-blue for a 1/3 insect druid with flying, and it has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, target creature has base power and toughness 3/3 until end of turn. If you control 6 or more lands, that creature has base power and toughness 6/6 until end of turn. So this is kind of a nice evasive threat that can pump up some of your other creatures each turn as well. If you're ever getting to 6 lands, making something a 6/6 is really, really threatening. So yeah, just probably see some play. I'm not exactly sure where, but could be good. Up next, Pinnacle Emissary. 1 blue-red for a 3/3 robot. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless drone artifact creature token with flying, and this token can block only creatures with flying. And it has warp for a blue-red hybrid. So easy to warp. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, make a thing. Kind of like Psy Master Thopterist. Pretty close comparison. I'm not sure how many Psy Master Thopterist decks there are these days. The fact that this itself is an artifact is pretty nice, and not legendary, slight bonus. And 3/3 is a better body than 1/4. So yeah, it's probably better than Psy in those decks if you're blue and red. I'm not too up on like the BattleBots scraps space, but I imagine some of those decks might want this. Up next, we have Servandum Sunstar Exemplar. White-black for a 2/2 legendary human knight. Vigilance and Menace. Whenever another creature you control dies or is put into exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Servandum and you gain 1 life. And when Servandum dies or it is put into exile while its power is 4 or greater, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. One of the other projects I have going on right now is a black-white Ketramos style deck. So you're blinking, you're exiling things. So yeah, I think I'm going to try this card in there. I'm not positive. I'm sort of going ham enough on the synergy to make it worthwhile, but we'll see. I'm not overly optimistic. That's why I put this card as a C-, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. And we're on to the commander cards. Up first, we have Insight Engine. 2 and a blue for an artifact. With an activated ability, 2 and tap. Put a charge counter on this artifact, then draw a card for each charge counter on it. Quite similar to the One Ring in terms of its use cases. It's definitely worse than the One Ring because it costs mana to activate, and it doesn't give you the protection, so you can't just like play this and then forget about the world for a turn. But in specifically Paradox Academy, it does a really good One Ring impression because mana is rarely the bottleneck once you have Paradox Engine going. And so being able to have sort of a second quote unquote combo with Paradox Engine. I mean, it's not a second, there's 100 in the deck, but yeah, I definitely foresee it going into that deck and being pretty good in that deck, but I'm not sure if it's going to see play anywhere else where mana is a much bigger consideration. Another one I'm sad Liam's not here for, Depthshaker Titan. 5 red for a 5/5 artifact robot. Creature robot. When this creature enters, any number of target non-creature artifacts you control become 3/3 artifact creatures. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Each artifact creature you control has melee, trample, and haste. And what's melee? Whenever a creature with melee attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attacked this combat. So all your things are getting +1/+1. If I understand that correctly, it's a weird multiplayer thing, so maybe it doesn't work that way, but that's how I read it. Liam did a very in-depth preview of this card. I will link it down in the description below. And I cannot do justice to what he's already done. So I'm gonna leave it there. And if you're interested in this card, I encourage you to go watch Liam's deep dive on this one. Up next, we have Baloth Prime. 3 and a green for a 10/10 beast. This creature enters tapped with 6 stun counters on it. Whenever you sacrifice a land, create a tapped 4/4 green beast creature token and untap this creature. 4 mana and sacrifice a land, you gain 2 life. So I looked at this card for a while and I was like, this card sucks. Oh my god, it's amazing. And I kept flip-flopping back and forth. I think there's some lands decks where this card is just going to be really good. If it lines up with something like Zerrin Orb, it's going to be hard to lose. Yeah, and even just where I ended up settling on is because even a fetch land gets you a 4/4 and a turn closer to your 10/10, and I think that's good enough. Like, the cost is not especially high. In that deck, you're going to be playing a ton of play extra land effects, a ton of crucibles, and so like being able to play like Ramadab Excavator, play fetch land, fetch, play your fetch land again, fetch, get 2 4/4s, get 2 turns closer to this. Like, yeah, I think it's a good enough engine that I'm willing to try it. We'll see how that goes. Up next is Horizon Explorer, 2 and a green for a 2/4 Insect Scout. This is the line of text we care about. Lands you control enter untapped. So it's just another one of those like Amulet of Vigor effects. And it also says whenever you attack a player, create a lander token. But you're playing it primarily for this lands you control enter untapped. And we're starting to get a bunch of those. I'm not sure there's a density of like all the other effects, but we're starting to get enough of these to make whatever it is that's going to happen. So just another one to keep your eye on. We're getting closer to density of these things. So if that's something you've been keeping your eye on, add another one to the stack. Yeah, and I think that's all we got for our Edge of Eternities spoiler set review. As always, we really appreciate all your support, and thanks for watching. If you enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing. If you think I missed anything or you think I misevaluated anything, definitely let me know down in the comments below. I tried my best, but you know, nobody's perfect. Yeah, and I'll catch you in the next one.